What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is a segment on my channel where I go through A24's entire catalog from the first film that they ever released until whenever I get current. And I believe this was the 38th film in their catalog that I've watched since I started doing this series. And I was looking forward to watching this movie because of the cast, and I honestly had no idea what to expect from this movie because I hadn't even heard of it before. And that's been really interesting with watching A24's catalog, is that there's been a lot of movies that have popped up that, like, I'll see big name celebrities like Equals that I just watched with Nicholas Hoult and Kristen Stewart. Like, I'd never even heard of that movie. And so it's been really interesting to see these A24 films that are lesser known and kind of formulate my own opinion on it and see what they were working on relatively early as a production company. And so today the movie I'm going to be discussing is Into the Forest. Into the Forest is directed by Patricia Rozema. In the not too distant future, two young women who live in a remote ancient forest discover the world around them is on the brink of an apocalypse. Informed by only rumor, they fight intruders, disease, loneliness, and starvation. So I hadn't even seen a trailer for this movie. I just looked in advance, saw that it starred Elliot Page and Evan Rachel Wood and Max Minghella. Max Minghella I know from The Handmaid's Tale. He's been in a couple other things, but I really like Elliot Page. I've liked him through his whole career, think that he's an incredibly talented actor. I've enjoyed Evan Rachel Wood in the things that I've seen her in. So I was really looking forward to watching this movie, and especially with like the whole post-apocalyptic vibe, but not in like a Mad Max-esque world, something that feels like the near but distant future. I always like movies that are set in that time period. And this movie was fine. It's not anything all that spectacular. It's also not really all that interesting. The performances, especially from Elliot Page and Evan Rachel Wood, are the highlights of this film. But the problem is, it's like an hour and 45 minutes, and it's just so bloated. And it just feels like it has a really hard time kind of finding its footing and understanding what it wants to say, other than just like the relationship between these two sisters. That's really like the crux of the entire film. But anytime it sort of like pushes off in another direction and wants to cover some sort of other ground, it never really works. So as the plot description says, we're introduced to our two lead characters played by Elliot Page and Evan Rachel Wood. They're two sisters. They're living with their dad at this house in the middle of the woods. I think that he said they're like several miles out of town, and from the looks of it inside, there's like technology that seems like it could exist, but that like sometime in the future, similar to like Spike Jonze's Her, where you have these like weird like screens that look like they don't even have like a physical glass screen. It's like super unique looking. I really liked that design. And Elliot Page's character is working on getting a degree, going to college. Evan Rachel Wood's character wants to be a dancer, but she's getting a little older, and so she feels like she might not be able to do that for much longer in her life. And so they're trying to push for those very different things in their lives. And one night they're at home and the power goes out. And the power's out for several weeks while they're at home. And then it ends up becoming several months. And they end up going into the downtown. The downtown area has been completely and totally like stripped of all supplies and groceries. Gas is becoming a super limited resource. And you're finding out that this is happening through the entire world. And so they end up going back home, well, through a specific set of circumstances, they end up just kind of shacking up in this house. And the film is the two sisters together trying to survive through this whatever is occurring. We don't really ever know 100% what it is outside of this power outage. Like I said, I really like the concept a lot. I think it's a really fascinating idea for a movie. I think there's a lot of little tidbits of things in this that I like. You obviously have a moment where the two sisters have a run-in with some people where it's like showing humanity kind of crumbling, and that the moral values of people disappear as soon as something as simplistic as technology disappears, which is a pretty nihilistic worldview to think that like the society just immediately collapses. But I guess we do see how people act in certain circumstances. I think of like when COVID was ramping up in 2020 and people just like, you couldn't get a hold of toilet paper and paper towels. So like, I guess if you're thinking about it in a more extreme sense, where like we're so embedded in technology that once technology is stripped away, that people just kind of resort to the most primitive mind, where it's just like survive, survive, survive. We'll do whatever we can to survive as long as we can. And most of this film is very quiet. It's the two sisters in this house having moments where they're reflecting on their childhood or thinking about what their lives could have been. And in theory, that's something that I would really enjoy. But like, the problem with this is, even though Elliot Page and Evan Rachel Wood have some moments that are really great, that they give really fantastic performances that kept me very engaged, there are also moments of just mundane dialogue that doesn't really amount to much, which is unfortunate, because I think if this movie was a little bit more concise and to the point, it would be something that I really like a lot. But it mostly just drags to where by about the halfway point of the movie, I was so pulled out. I just was like, okay, can we wrap this up? It's not really going anywhere. I think of another movie that did this similar concept, which is Trey Edward Schultz's It Comes at Night, which a lot of people complained was like a horror movie that's not a horror movie, but you have this like unknown threat, right? In this movie, it's technology being stripped away and it's human beings being boiled down to their most primitive survival state. And that it's like there could be a disease that are affecting people that's causing them to not trust anyone. That's obviously much more of like a high anxiety suspense of like a family comes to this other family's house. They're in the middle of nowhere and it's like, can we trust them? Are they infected? There's all these little teeny tiny things that are introduced that keep you as an audience member on the edge of your seat. And while not every scene is like the most tense, because that looming threat is always there, you're always on the edge of your seat. Where I feel like the threat in this movie of just like the power going out and like the uncertainty of the future wasn't enough to kind of hold my interest for the entire runtime of the film. And that's really unfortunate, because I thought this was a really cool concept, but I probably wouldn't watch this movie again. It's just too bloated to really get anything out of, and that's unfortunate because I really like these actors a lot. And yeah, it just really wasn't all that great. So have you seen Into the Forest? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was very mediocre. I feel like there were so many moments that it could have been something truly special, and it ended up just being very run-of-the-mill. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.